Hello, and welcome to GripUF. My name is Alex Lacerna, and today I'll be walking you through the process of designing, scaling, and printing your first hand. Some things we are going to need. We're going to need the software Blender. You'll need either Makerbot Print or Makerbot Desktop. For this tutorial, I'll be using Makerbot Print, but I will also have a tutorial for Makerbot Desktop in the description. You'll need the device sizing file for Blender, which you can also find in the description of this video. You'll need the pictures of your client, which you can receive from the grip administration, and you'll also need the STL files for the hand that you'll be working on, which you can also receive from the grip administration. Firstly, we're going to go into the files of our client, and we're going to look for the pictures of a top view and a side view that best fit what we need to work with. Normally, that's the most viewed in picture and the clearest picture. For the top view, I've selected this picture, and for the side view, I've selected this picture. Note that it's going to be a right view for a left hand disability, and it will be a left view for a right hand disability. From there, we're going to go into Blender. What we're using Blender for is we're going to scale the prosthetic hand to be the right scale to fit the client. From here, we're going to load the device sizing Blender file. That goes File, Open, and then find wherever you have put the device sizing file. From here, what we can do is if we press down and hold the scroll wheel, we can move in three-dimensional space, which is cool, but we're not really using that function. What we're going to do is we're going to go down into the View tab, click that, and go to the top view. This will center us on that top view. From there, to move around in 2D space, we hold the Shift key on our keyboard while simultaneously clicking down the scroll wheel to move in two-dimensional space. From there, we need to load the pictures in of our client onto this grid. This grid is 1 inch units on the right side and 1 centimeter units on the left side. To add an image, we're going to go over to the Images section. For the first non-set image, we're going to open a file, find the pictures of your client, select the top view, and it appears very small, so we're going to go over to this tab here. There are 4 buttons in this tab. The first is the horizontal movement, the second is the vertical movement, the third is the rotation of the image, and the fourth is the scale. We're going to slide the scale to the right until the image blows up in the view, which will often be quite a bit. From here, what we need to do is we need to line up the ruler in the background to the 1 inch unit boxes on the right hand side. And to do that, we're going to play around with the rotation, the scale, and the left and right, or up and down, left and right buttons and slide wheels in order to get that just right. So this takes a little bit of getting used to. However, once you play around with it enough, it should become fairly simple. So this may take me a minute. That's okay. Let's see. So I'm trying to line the 27 up with this line and the 26 up with this line. I'm getting pretty close. There we go. Make sure that the lines also are pretty close to the other lines, just so that you have some extra reference points. So see, the 30 is kind of separated off the line. So that's why I'm going to really make sure that they all line up pretty well. There. Now that we have the scale, or now that we have the picture in the background scaled up correctly to the device sizing file, we are going to start to fit the hand to the residual. So by scrolling, or by moving over to the list or selection of hands here, we're going to select the one that you are using. For this example, I will be using the Raptor Reloaded hand. To see what hand you want to use, by right-clicking any of the hands, it turns orange. And by going over to the Items tab on the right-hand side, you can see what item you are working with. I have selected the Raptor Reloaded hand. However, there are other hands, such as the Phoenix hand, and the Greybot Flexi hand, the Osprey hand, whatever that you have been assigned or want to do. So by right-clicking the Raptor Reloaded hand and pressing the G key on the keyboard, it turns white and you can move it in two-dimensional space. We're going to place that above the client's hand, And now the goal is to perfectly center it onto the client's hand. The keys we use are going to be G to move. G stands for grab in this case. By pressing the R key on the keyboard, we can rotate the hand in any direction. And by pressing the S key, we can scale the hand to be bigger or smaller. Note that the S key is the most important because once you scale it upwards, you need to take note of the scale on the right-hand side. That is very important because we don't want the part to be too big or too small, depending on who it's going to. So we're just working on centering this correctly. It's very important to pay attention to the internal structure of the hand that is very nicely laid out in this device setting file to make sure that the walls of the hand on the inside are about right to whoever may be using the hand. That looks pretty centered. Rotate that a little bit. From there, now that the hand is set on the top view, we need to look at the hand on the right view just for another perspective. If we go down to another non-set image, we can firstly, before that, go over to the View tab and select the right view. This puts us on the right view. Now you notice that the image from the top is still there. How we could fix this is if we go back to the image on the right view, the top view.jpg, and change the axis to only the top view, it keeps it on the top view. So if we go back to the View tab and select top, that is where that image will appear. Going back over to the right view, we can go to another non-set image, select open, find the files of your client, and select the right view. And again, this makes the image very small, so you'll have to blow it up. Perfect. Once again, we need to fit this picture file to the same setting as the device sizing file, or same scale rather. So that's just going to take a little bit of playing around, getting these lines to match up. Almost there. For the sake of this video, I'm not going to worry about it too much, but it should be a priority to get this very close because we don't want a hand to be misfit. Almost there. I think I went a little bit too big. Yeah, I did go a little bit too big. Nope, I was going the wrong direction. I'm not even the greatest. There we go. That looks pretty good. From there, what we need to do is, because this hand is set in that position from the top view, it's going to remain that way. But if you move it with the grab tool by pressing G, going back into the top view, it has moved. Oh, also, we need to make sure that our right view is only staying on the right plane. And we can do that by going axis and selecting the right view to stay in the right plane. But as you can see, by moving it, because this is a 3D object, it will move in 3D space. So going over to the right view, you can see that it has moved back. So what we need to do is we need to move the image to match the hand. Perfect. You can rotate the image to make sure that it fits this direction, because rotating it from a 3D standpoint going back to the front view, which is actually the top view in Blender, the front left or the up and down rotation isn't seen on this top view. Now that we have scaled and moved our hand appropriately, we need to take note of the scale that is set on this right hand scale side. Because it is increased at 1.027 scale, we need to write that number down. 1.027. This is the scale that you're going to tell the printer to print at a larger rate than the device that you put in. From there, you should save this file with File, Save As, just for housekeeping. From there, what we're going to do is we're going to open Makerbot Print. And what I'm going to do, because Makerbot Print has certain capabilities that include the bottom right-hand window, I'm going to move myself to the middle of the frame. One moment. Now that I'm in the middle of the frame, we can continue. First thing, you should know how to navigate the software. By clicking and holding the scroll wheel, you can move in two-dimensional space. By right-clicking, you can navigate in three-dimensional space. And by scrolling the scroll wheel, you can zoom in and out of the build plate. Firstly, you should know what printer you're going to be printing onto. For our lab, we have Makerbot Replicator 5th generations and Replicator 2s. To add a printer, click Add Printer, then click Add an Unconnected Printer, and then select from the list of printers what you'd like to add to your list. Like I said, we have Replicator 2s and Replicator 5th generations. For this example, I will be using the Replicator 5th generation. From here, what you'll need to do is import the object files onto the build plate for whichever hand you'll be working with. Go into your folder of STLs and simply drag and drop an image file or an object file onto the build plate. From here, we can left click to move the object around the build plate. We can orient it by rotating it either in the X, Y, or Z direction. And we can also arrange the build plate to center the part on the build plate. Going back into our folder, what you'll need to do is you'll need to find out from the manual of your hand how many of each part of the STLs you'll need to include in your build plate to correctly assemble the hand. For this particular example, the number of parts you'll need to print happens to be in part of the name. However, this may not be the case for other hands. For this example, the Raptor Reloaded hand, I already have a fully assembled build plate, which I'll be using for the rest of my example. What we need to do now is we need to make sure that the scale is correct. This is why we did the Blender work, so we can print the hand at the right size. So because our scale in Blender was 1.027, we need to multiply our 100% by the 1.027 to give us 102.7%. This makes the hand slightly bigger. Go back over to the Arrange tab to center the build plate. Now that the build is centered on the build plate, we need to go into the Settings tab for our printer and make sure that all of the settings are correct. For the Makerbot Replicator 5th generation, we need to make sure that Smart Extruder for our lab is selected as opposed to the Smart Extruder Plus. And we need to make sure the infill density is set to 45%. For the Makerbot Replicator 2, we only have one extruder for that, which is the Mickey, MKII, and the infill density is set to 45%. From there, we are good to export this part and name it whatever you'd want. This is the left hand for the Raptor Reloaded. And save. By exporting, you will have an estimated time, an estimated material usage, and an estimated time of completion. Perfect. We can see exactly how much material is going to be needed, the time it will finish if you started the print right now, and the time estimate for how long the print should take. We should be able to exit out of this. We can minimize Makerbot Print, and we have the file of the export right here. Files exported from Makerbot Print for the 5th generation will end in the tag or the file extension .makerbot, whereas the files exported for the Replicator 2 will have the file extension .x3g. From here, please watch the video on how to use the printers and how to start the actual print on the hand. Thank you for joining GripUF.